2 of Thucydides' Chronicles, the official outbreak of the Peloponnesian War in 431 BC. For the first 15 years of the conflict, the two powers engaged in relentless seasonal strikes. The Spartans invaded Attica by land each summer, while the Athenian fleet devastated the Peloponnesian coast by sea. But the true crisis of this era was an unforeseen terror that struck from within the city walls. Chapter 1. The Midnight Breach at Plataea. In the early spring of 431 BCE, a deep silence still hung over the borderlands of Boeotia. The formal peace treaty between the two superpowers had not yet been broken, but local hatreds were already reaching a boiling point. Under the cover of a dark, stormy night, a vanguard of 300 heavily armed Thebans slipped across the frontier. They marched directly to the gates of Plataea, a crucial democracy and a fierce, loyal land ally of Athens. The iron gates were opened secretly by a treacherous local oligarchic faction, men who wished to destroy the democracy and hand their own city over to the Boeotian League. The Plataean citizens were fast asleep in their beds, completely unaware that an elite enemy strike force was currently stacking shields in their central marketplace. Instead of launching an immediate midnight massacre, the Theban commanders issued a calm public proclamation. They invited the inhabitants to renounce their alliance with Athens and join the Peloponnesian cause in peace. The Plataeans woke in absolute terror, realizing that their city walls had been breached while they slept. They initially agreed to negotiate, but under the dim morning light, they realized how small the Theban force truly was. Refusing to betray Athens, the citizens formulated a desperate counterattack. To avoid detection, they dug holes through the common mud brick walls of their adjoining houses, consolidating their fighters in the dark. They barricaded the narrow streets with heavy wooden wagons, and at a prearranged signal, they charged out from the shadows. The Thebans were instantly trapped in a terrifying maze of unfamiliar alleys. Women and slaves stood on the roofs, screaming out curses while hurling a relentless hail of stones and heavy tiles down into the plaza. Slashing through the mud and rain, the routed Thebans ran blindly through the streets, chased by a furious population. Most were cornered against the city walls and forced to surrender unconditionally. This bloody midnight skirmish ruined any hope of a diplomatic solution. The proxy lines were erased, and the global war had officially begun. The moment the news of the Plataean disaster reached the Peloponnese, the diplomatic mask was torn away completely. King Archidamus of Sparta immediately issued a total mobilization order across the entire Peloponnesian League. 2/3 of the combined hoplite forces of every allied state gathered at the Isthmus of Corinth, forming an unstoppable land army. Archidamus was a wise man, cautious, and deeply experienced in the unpredictable nature of warfare. Before crossing the border into Athenian territory, he gathered his generals and ambassadors to deliver a sober warning. We are marching against a state of immense wealth and unrivaled naval capability. Archidamus declared to his officers, "Do not let our numbers make us reckless, for the eyes of all Greece are fixed upon us." They look at our army with a mixture of fear and deep resentment, waiting to see if we can truly break the tyrant city. We must maintain absolute discipline, for an enemy driven by pride will fight like a cornered beast. Hoping for a final concession, Archidamus dispatched a Spartan envoy named Melesippus to Athens to see if the democracy would buckle under the threat of invasion. But Pericles had already passed an unyielding law through the Athenian assembly. No herald or embassy from Sparta would be received once their army was in the field. Melesippus was met at the border by Athenian guards and commanded to leave Attica before the setting of the sun. As he reached the frontier line, the Spartan envoy turned to his guards, speaking a chilling phrase that Thucydides recorded for eternity. "This day will be the beginning of great miseries to the Hellenes." The envoy spurred his horse back toward the Peloponnesian camp, and the iron vanguard of Sparta crossed into Attica. Chapter 3. The evacuation of Attica. As the Spartan phalanx advanced, the landscape of Attica underwent a sudden, historic transformation. Following the strict fortress blueprint laid out by Pericles, the entire rural population abandoned their ancestral lands. It was a deeply painful, agonizing migration for thousands of families who had lived on the soil for generations. Farmers loaded their children, their furniture, and their household goods into heavy wooden ox carts. They painstakingly unbolted the timber beams from their farmhouses, refusing to leave usable material for the invaders. Their valuable flocks of sheep and herds of oxen were ferried across the water to the safe island outposts of Euboea and Salamis. A massive human tide of over 200,000 refugees poured through the gates of Athens. The city was instantly choked with people, completely overwhelmed by the sudden influx. There were not enough houses to contain them, forcing families to build crude, cramped shacks out of linen and scrap wood. They occupied the public squares, the empty fields between the fortifications, and even the sacred chambers of the temples. Only the fortress of the Acropolis remained guarded, while the rest of the capital became a dense, swelling human hive. The people accepted the loss of their freedom of movement because they believed in the promise of the sea. They placed their absolute survival behind the stone protection of the long walls, turning their backs on the land.
Chapter 4. The Burning of Acharnae. King Archidamus moved his army deep into the heart of Attica, halting at the wealthy and populous suburb of Acharnae. Akane sat just 7 miles north of Athens, providing a direct, provocative view of the city walls. The Spartans set fire to the olive groves, tramped down the ripe grain fields, and smashed the beautiful country villas to pieces. Plumes of thick black smoke began to roll over the horizon, visible to every citizen standing on the battlements of Athens. The city inside exploded into a frenzy of political rage and psychological torment. The Acharnian hoplites, who formed a massive faction of 3,000 armed men within the walls, were furious. They demanded that the gates be thrown open immediately, wanting to march out and fight the Spartans to save their homes from destruction. Crowds gathered on the street corners, shouting insults at Pericles, calling him a coward who was hiding behind stones while his country burned. Pericles watched the storm of public anger with a cold, detached, and clinical calculation. He knew that the Spartans were trying to bait the democracy into a rash, suicidal land battle against a vastly superior phalanx. Refusing to give in to the emotions of the crowd, he used his constitutional powers to lock down the government. He banned all public assemblies, blocked the gates, and kept the army inside the defenses. Instead of risking his infantry, he dispatched a massive fleet of 100 triremes to circle the Peloponnese. The Athenian navy struck the undefended coastal towns of the Spartans, burning their shipyards and ravaging their shores in return. It was an asymmetric war of exhaustion. Spartan iron striking empty Athenian dirt, while Athenian wood strangled the economy of the sea. Chapter 5. The Masterpiece of Pericles. At the end of that first year of blood and ash, the Athenian state held its traditional winter public funeral for the fallen warriors. The remains of the dead were placed inside cypress coffins and paraded through the mourning streets to the national cemetery at Keramakos. Pericles was chosen by the democracy to stand upon the high stone platform and deliver the final oration. Instead of offering standard expressions of grief, he delivered a philosophical masterpiece that defined the very soul of the Athenian Empire. Our constitution is called a democracy because power is in the hands of the entire population, not a privileged minority, Pericles declared. In our private disputes, all men are equal before the law, and advancement in public life depends on merit, not wealth. We do not look at our neighbors with suspicion, nor do we pass judgment on those who choose to live differently. We open our imperial city to the world, never banishing foreigners or hiding our secrets to gain a military edge. We cultivate a deep love of beauty without falling into extravagance, and we pursue knowledge without losing our warrior spirit. To sum it up, I say that Athens is the school of Hellas, and our individual citizens possess an unmatched versatility of mind. Do not weep for these men, for they died defending a civilization whose eternal glory will be carved forever into the memory of mankind. The crowd left the cemetery filled with an intense, intoxicating wave of patriotic pride. They believed their empire was immortal, completely unaware that a biological apocalypse was already drifting toward their crowded ports. Chapter 6. The Great Plague of Athens. In the hot, humid summer of 430 BCE, the Peloponnesian army returned to Attica for a second season of burning. But as the crops began to burn outside, a far more terrifying enemy materialized within the city walls. A mysterious, catastrophic pestilence, believed to have originated in parts of Ethiopia and Egypt, struck the port of Piraeus. It exploded through the dense, unsanitary refugee camps huddled between the fortifications, turning the capital into a giant quarantine zone. Thucydides caught the disease himself, and he records its horrific symptoms with the cold, clinical detail of a modern physician. The The sickness attacked the body with a sudden, overwhelming force, striking perfectly healthy citizens without warning. It began with intense heat in the brain, accompanied by bloodshot eyes and an immediate inflammation of the throat and tongue. Next came violent sneezing, extreme hoarseness, and a deep, agonizing cough that racked the chest. The stomach would convulse, triggering severe vomiting of bile that left the body completely exhausted. Externally, the skin turned a reddish, livid color, breaking out into ulcers and pustules, while internally, the patient suffered from an unquenchable burning. Victims could not bear the touch of clothing or linen, preferring to lie completely naked on the cold stones. Driven mad by an unceasing thirst, thousands crawled through the streets, throwing themselves headlong into the public water fountains. If they survived the internal torment, the disease descended into the bowels, causing severe ulcerations and death by exhaustion. Those who managed to recover were left with permanent scars, often losing their fingers, their toes, or their sight, while others suffered from a total loss of memory, unable to recognize their own families.
Chapter 7. The Moral Collapse. The sheer apocalyptic scale of the mortality quickly crushed all human resistance, triggering a total breakdown of law and social order. The physicians were entirely powerless, dying faster than their patients, because they stayed by the sick beds out of duty. Every home became a tomb, and those who tried to look after their friends were infected and slaughtered by the disease. The street corners were piled high with decomposing bodies, and even the wild scavenger birds and feral dogs refused to touch the meat. All ancient, sacred religious customs regarding the burial of the dead were cast aside in the scramble for survival. Men engaged in shameless, shocking behavior at the funeral pyres, seizing the fires built by strangers and throwing their own dead relatives onto the flames. This constant presence of sudden death triggered a permanent collapse of morality across the population. Citizens who had previously hidden their vices now indulged in immediate, reckless pleasures, spending their money on wild luxuries. They saw that the rich died in an instant, while the poor suddenly inherited their vast estates, turning life into a desperate lottery. No fear of the gods or law of man held any restraint over the crowds, since no one expected to live long enough to face a trial. They believed that the gods had cursed them all equally. The plague killed over a quarter of the population, shattering the military strength of Athens and permanently poisoning the psychological core of the democracy.
Chapter 8. The Defiance and Death of Pericles. Broken by the horrors of the pestilence and exhausted by the ongoing destruction of their farms, the Athenian citizens turned their grief into political fury. They sent desperate, unauthorized peace embassies to Sparta, which were rejected with contempt, driving the crowd to blame Pericles for all their miseries. They stripped him of his office, fined him a massive fortune in silver, and demanded a complete reversal of his grand strategy. Pericles summoned a final assembly, standing before his hostile people, with a cold intellectual resilience that could not be shaken. Your anger against me is entirely empty and unjust, Pericles declared to the furious crowd. You are allowing your private grief to blind you to the preservation of our collective empire. To clear your names, you must remember that an empire cannot be held with soft words. What you possess is an absolute tyranny. To acquire it may have been wrong, but to abandon it now will bring immediate total destruction down upon your heads. Do not blame the man who guided you, for the memory of our achievements will live forever in the pages of history. The fickle assembly relented, re-electing him to absolute power within months. But the political victory was cut short by tragedy. In the autumn of 429 BCE, after watching his own sister and eldest sons die of the infection, the plague claimed Pericles himself. Thucydides pauses his narrative to offer a solemn epitaph, noting that his death marked the beginning of the end for Athens. Pericles had been a man of transparent integrity, capable of leading the crowd instead of being led by them, telling them hard truths instead of flattering them. His successors, however, were demagogues of a lesser breed, men who competed for popularity and sacrificed imperial strategy for short-term political gain. Book 2 concludes as the wild, unguided passions of the leaderless Athenian crowd set a dangerous, irreversible course toward total global escalation.